My name is Emma Foster, and what I'm about to tell you still makes my hands shake when I think about it. Imagine working for 5 years, saving every penny, finally buying your dream home, only to have your own parents try to steal it from you. Not for themselves, but for your divorced sister who they claimed deserved it more. They actually showed up at a family gathering with a fake eviction notice, demanding I hand over my keys in front of 20 relatives. But what they didn't know was that I had something they never expected: legal protection that would expose their scheme and change our family forever. If you're watching this, please subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. I read every comment, and your support means everything. Let me take you back to that Sunday afternoon that started like any other family gathering. The Grandview restaurant had been our family's celebration spot for 20 years. Every milestone, every holiday, every reunion happened in their private dining room with its crystal chandeliers and mahogany panels. That Sunday was supposed to be Aunt Margaret's 70th birthday lunch. 23 relatives had gathered, from my grandmother down to my cousin's newborn. The table stretched the entire length of the room, covered in white linen and decorated with fresh orchids. I sat between Cousin Mark and Uncle James, enjoying the seafood bisque, when my father suddenly stood up, tapping his water glass with a spoon. "Before we celebrate Margaret," he announced, his voice carrying that authoritative tone from his military days, "Linda and I have something important to discuss regarding Sarah's situation." My stomach dropped. Sarah, my older sister, sat across from me, her eyes red-rimmed from what I assumed was another crying session about her divorce. She'd been staying at my house for 2 weeks already. Temporarily, she'd said. Mom stood beside Dad, her hand on his shoulder. "As you all know, Sarah's been through a terrible time. David left her with nothing, and she has the children to think about." The room grew quiet. Even baby Lucas stopped fussing. 20 pairs of eyes shifted between Sarah and my parents. "Family takes care of family," Dad continued, reaching into his suit jacket. "And sometimes that means making sacrifices for those who need it most." I watched him pull out a white envelope, his movements deliberate and practiced. This wasn't spontaneous. They'd planned this. "Emma," he said, turning to me with that look, the one that used to make me hand over my report cards in middle school. "We need to discuss your living situation." Then Dad pulled out an envelope from his jacket, and my whole world tilted. He slid the envelope across the table, past the bread basket and water glasses, until it stopped directly in front of me. The room was so silent I could hear the air conditioning humming overhead. "Go ahead, open it," Mom urged, her voice sweet but firm. With trembling fingers, I picked up the envelope. Inside was a single sheet of paper, handwritten in my father's distinctive block letters. At the top, underlined twice, "Notice to vacate." "This is a joke, right?" My voice came out smaller than I intended. "Sarah needs your house, Emma," Dad stated flatly. "You have 30 days to make arrangements. We've already discussed it with her, and she's ready to move in next month." Sarah dabbed at her eyes with a tissue, perfectly timed. "The kids need stability, Emma. You understand, don't you? You're single, you can rent a nice apartment downtown, closer to your office." I scanned the paper. It was absurd. No legal letterhead, no proper formatting, just my father's handwriting demanding I surrender the property for family necessity. "This isn't even legal," I managed. Mom's face hardened. "Legal? We're your parents, Emma. We co-signed your loan, remember?" That was a lie. They hadn't co-signed anything. I'd qualified on my own, proudly, with my credit score and down payment. "You have a 3-bedroom house for just yourself," Aunt Carol chimed in from the far end of the table. "It's selfish, really." Uncle James nodded. "Family helps family." I looked around the table. Some relatives avoided eye contact, others nodded in agreement. My cousin Mark had his phone out, and I realized with a sick feeling that he was recording this. "Sign the agreement." Dad pushed another paper toward me. "We'll handle the transfer properly. No one needs lawyers involved." "Emma's always been selfish," Sarah said, her voice cracking dramatically. Even as kids, she never shared. Remember the college fund situation, Mom? My mother nodded sagely. We had to split it evenly, even though Sarah had better grades. Another lie. I'd earned academic scholarships while Sarah partied through community college, but correcting them now would look defensive, petty. A single woman doesn't need a three-bedroom house, Aunt Carol repeated, louder this time. It's wasteful. Sarah has two children who need their own rooms. Emma probably rattles around in that big space, Cousin Beth added. Must be lonely. They didn't know about my home office where I ran my consulting side business, or the guest room I'd converted into a library, or the art studio I'd built in the basement. To them, I was just single Emma. Incomplete, unnecessary, taking up space meant for real families. Sarah stood up, swaying slightly for effect. I haven't been sleeping. The kids cry every night asking why Daddy left. We're crammed in Mom's basement while Emma has 3 bathrooms she doesn't even use. 2 bathrooms, I corrected quietly. See? Dad's voice rose. You're arguing about bathrooms while your sister's children suffer? My grandmother, who'd been silent until now, spoke up. In my day, family shared everything. This individualism is what's wrong with your generation, Emma. The irony wasn't lost on me. Grandma lived alone in a 5-bedroom house since Grandpa died 10 years ago. Maybe Emma can't afford the mortgage alone anyway, Uncle Pete suggested. Better to let Sarah take over before she loses it to the bank. I wanted to scream that I'd never missed a payment, that my mortgage was only 22% of my income, that I'd just gotten promoted to senior financial analyst. But they'd already decided who I was, the selfish little sister who needed to learn about sacrifice. Look at her, Sarah pointed at me, tears streaming now. She won't even consider it. My own sister would rather see me homeless than share what she has. Mark's phone was still recording. Several relatives shook their heads disapprovingly. The walls felt like they were closing in. And I realized this wasn't really about the house. This was about putting me in my place. If you've ever felt pressured by family to sacrifice what you've worked hard for, hit that like button. It's amazing how quickly family loyalty becomes a weapon when someone wants what you have. And if you want to know how I turned this situation around with one phone call, make sure you're subscribed with notifications on. I'm curious. Let me know in the comments. Have you ever had family try to take advantage of you? What would you do if your parents literally tried to evict you from your own home? Now let me tell you what was really at stake here. That house wasn't just property to me. It represented 5 years of 70-hour work weeks, skipped vacations, and driving a 12-year-old Honda while saving every bonus. 20% down in this market meant $65,000 cash. Money I'd saved while Sarah spent hers on designer bags and Disney cruises with David. If I signed their ridiculous paper, I'd lose everything. Not just the house, but my credit history, my stability, my proof that I could succeed on my own terms. My professional reputation would crumble if word got out that I'd been evicted by my own parents. How would that look to my clients who trusted me with their financial planning? I need a minute, I said, standing up. To do what? Mom snapped. Call some boyfriend to rescue you? Oh, wait, you don't have one of those either. The cruelty of it made several relatives shift uncomfortably, but no one defended me. I need to use the restroom, I lied, grabbing my purse. Don't think you can just leave, Dad warned. We'll be right here waiting for your signature. As I walked past Sarah, she grabbed my wrist. Please, Emma, my babies need this. Don't you have any maternal instinct at all? I pulled free and headed for the door, my phone already in my hand. 3 missed calls from a number I recognized. Marcus Chen, the real estate attorney who'd handled my closing. But why was he calling on a Sunday? In the hallway, I quickly texted him. At Grandview, family trying to force me to sign over my house. Help. His response was immediate. Do not sign anything. On my way. 15 minutes. Then another text. Check your email. Sent you something Friday about your deed. Important. My hands shook as I opened my email. There it was. Sent Friday at 4:47 p.m. regarding Special Protection Clause activation. I'd barely skimmed it, thinking it was routine paperwork. Now I read every word, and my heart started racing for an entirely different reason. Through the door, I could hear Dad's booming voice. "Where did she go? Someone check if her car's still here." I typed back to Marcus. "Bring everything. They have the whole family here as witnesses." "Perfect," he replied. "The more witnesses, the better." When I returned to the dining room, the atmosphere had shifted from uncomfortable to hostile. They'd moved my chair next to Sarah, trapping me between her and my mother. "Feeling better?" Mom asked coldly. "Ready to do the right thing?" "I haven't decided anything," I said, sitting down carefully. "What's to decide?" Dad slammed his palm on the table, making the glassware jump. "Sign it now!" "She's stalling," Sarah accused. "Probably trying to hide assets or something. That's what David did during our divorce." "I'm not David," I said quietly. "No, you're worse." Sarah's voice pitched higher. "David had an affair. You're abandoning family. We raised you better." Mom grabbed my hand, her nails digging in. "Where's your compassion?" 28 years we invested in you," Dad added. "Fed you, clothed you, educated you." "I paid you back for college," I interrupted. "That's not the point." He stood up, looming over me. "Family isn't about money." "Then why are you trying to take my house?" The question hung in the air for a heartbeat before Sarah burst into fresh tears. "Listen to her. My children are homeless, and she's worried about property values." "Your children aren't homeless," I pointed out. "You're living with Mom and Dad." "In a basement," Sarah wailed. "They deserve better." "Then work for it like I did," I said, immediately regretting it as the room erupted. "How dare you!" Aunt Carol gasped. "Heartless," Uncle James added. "Think of the children." Grandma clutched her chest dramatically. My phone buzzed. "Marcus, 5 minutes. Don't sign anything. Recording everything?" I glanced at Mark, still filming. "Actually, yes," I muttered. "What?" Mom demanded. "Nothing. I need 10 minutes to think." "You've had 10 minutes," Dad roared. "Sign it or we're done. No inheritance, no holidays, no family." "Robert, calm down," Aunt Margaret finally spoke up, looking uncomfortable. "Stay out of this, Margaret," Mom snapped. "This is between us and our ungrateful daughter." Sarah slid the paper closer to me, placing a pen on top. "Please, Emma, for once in your life, think of someone besides yourself." My phone buzzed again. "Marcus." Walking in now. The door to the private dining room opened, and everything was about to change. "I need more time," I said, pushing the paper back towards Sarah. "Time for what?" Dad's face was turning red. "To lawyer up? To screw over your family?" "Maybe she's waiting for someone," Sarah said suspiciously. "Emma, did you call someone?" Before I could answer, Mom snatched my phone from the table. "Let's see who you're texting." "Give that back!" I reached for it, but she pulled away. "Marcus Chen?" She read from the screen. "Who's Marcus Chen?" "Probably some boyfriend she's hiding," Sarah sneered. "Another secret, Emma?" "I don't have secrets," I said, trying to stay calm, "and I'm not signing anything under duress." "Duress?" Dad laughed bitterly. "We're your family, not criminals. You're threatening to disown me if I don't give up my house. What would you call it?" "I'd call it a wake-up call," Uncle Pete interjected. "About time someone taught you about sacrifice." Mark moved closer with his phone, getting a better angle. "This is intense," he muttered to his girlfriend. "Delete that video," I told him. "Why?" Mark smirked. "Afraid of evidence? Truth hurts, doesn't it?" "The truth?" I stood up, my composure finally cracking. "The truth is that I worked for everything I have while Sarah what?" Sarah jumped up too, getting in my face. "Go ahead, say it. While Sarah was raising children and trying to save her marriage? While Sarah was spending money she didn't have?" The words burst out before I could stop them. The room gasped collectively. Even the waitstaff hovering by the door looked shocked. "How dare you?" Mom raised her hand as if to slap me, then caught herself. You jealous little Mrs. Foster? A calm, professional voice cut through the chaos. I don't believe we've met. I'm Marcus Chen. Everyone turned toward the door. Marcus stood there in an expensive charcoal suit, looking like he'd stepped out of a law firm's senior partner meeting rather than rushed here on a Sunday afternoon. Who the hell are you? Dad demanded. Marcus smiled pleasantly, pulling out a business card. Emma's attorney. I understand there's some confusion about property ownership? The room went dead silent. Sarah's mouth fell open. Mom dropped my phone onto the table with a clatter. Attorney? Dad's voice wavered for the first time. 6 months ago, when I was signing my closing documents, Marcus had said something odd. Always get it in writing, Emma. Especially with family. Especially when money's involved. I'd laughed it off then. My family would never try to take advantage of me. We had our issues, sure, but we weren't those kinds of people. Your house has a special protection clause, he'd explained, sliding an extra document across his desk. It's something I recommend for all my single clients, particularly women. It prevents anyone from claiming ownership through coercion, emotional manipulation, or familial pressure. Seems paranoid, I'd said. Paranoid is my middle name, Marcus had smiled. Well, actually it's James. But you get the idea. Initial here, here, and sign here. Now, standing in that dining room with my family glaring at him like he was the enemy, I understood why he'd insisted. Emma doesn't need a lawyer, Mom said, recovering first. This is a family matter. Actually, Marcus said, setting his briefcase on the table, when it involves property transfer and what appears to be an attempted illegal eviction, it's very much a legal matter. Illegal? Sarah sputtered. We're her family. Family members commit 64% of financial fraud, Marcus stated calmly. May I see this supposed eviction notice? Dad reluctantly pushed the handwritten paper toward him. Marcus photographed it with his phone, then actually chuckled. This is adorable, he said. Did you use a template from the internet? It's a formal notice, Dad insisted. It's toilet paper, legally speaking, Marcus replied. Emma, have you signed anything? No. Good, don't. He pulled out a folder from his briefcase. Now, let's discuss what's actually happening here. My phone buzzed with another text. This one from an unknown number. Security footage from restaurant entrance saved. Management. I looked up to find the restaurant manager standing discreetly by the door, giving me a subtle nod. They'd been recording, too. I don't know who you think you are, Mom started, but Marcus held up a hand. I'm the person who's about to explain why this little ambush could land some of you in serious legal trouble. Would you like me to continue, or should we take this to the police station? The room temperature seemed to drop 10 degrees. Police? Aunt Carol's voice cracked. Why would police be involved? Marcus ignored her, pulling out his phone. Emma, I need you to confirm something. Did you receive my email Friday about your deed protection? Yes, I said, though I'd barely read it until 20 minutes ago. Excellent. So you're aware of the special provisions we put in place? I nodded, playing along even though my understanding was fuzzy at best. What provisions? Dad demanded. What are you talking about? I'll explain in a moment, Marcus said, typing something on his phone. First, I need to make a quick call. He stepped toward the corner of the room, but his voice carried clearly. Yes, this is Marcus Chen. I need you here, now. Bring the file. Yes, the whole file. Grandview Restaurant, private dining room, potential fraud and coercion case, 23 witnesses. Sarah grabbed my arm. Emma, what have you done? Who else is coming? I don't know, I admitted honestly. You planned this, Mom accused. You knew we were going to help Sarah and you set us up. How could I plan something I didn't know about? I shot back. Ladies, gentlemen, Marcus returned to the table, his demeanor shifting to something more serious. I need everyone to understand something. What you've attempted today, pressuring someone to sign over property under emotional duress, with threats of familial exile, constitutes attempted fraud under state law. We didn't threaten anyone, Dad protested. You have 23 witnesses who heard you say sign it or we're done, Marcus pointed out. And I believe your nephew has been recording? Mark quickly lowered his phone. I wasn't. I mean, keep recording, Marcus advised. It'll be helpful for my client's case. Case? Sarah's tears had mysteriously dried up. What case? The one Emma will file if you continue this harassment, Marcus said simply. Now, who actually owns the house at 447 Maple Drive? Emma does, but... Mom started. No buts. Emma owns it. Her name alone is on the deed. Did any of you contribute to the down payment? Silence. Did any of you co-sign the mortgage? More silence. Then legally, you have absolutely no claim to that property. Zero. Through the window, I saw another car pull up. A woman in a navy suit stepped out, carrying a thick leather portfolio. Ah, Marcus smiled. Perfect timing. What would you do in my situation? Would you give in to keep the peace? Or stand your ground even if it meant losing your family? I'm reading all your comments, and honestly, your support keeps me going. Drop your answer below. I really want to know how you would have handled this. And if you're wondering who just arrived and what happened next, you're going to want to see this. Make sure you're subscribed, because this ending will blow your mind. The truth about my house, and why my parents really wanted it, was about to come out. Let me continue with what happened when that second person walked in. Before the woman could enter, Mom stood up dramatically. Everyone, look at Emma. Look at what she's become, so selfish she hired lawyers to fight her own family. She's always been ungrateful, Sarah added, sensing an opportunity. Remember when she didn't even come to my wedding shower? I was in the hospital with appendicitis, I reminded her. Excuses, Dad boomed. Always excuses. And now lawyers? You're tearing this family apart. The relatives started murmuring, taking sides. Some looked uncomfortable, others openly disapproving of me. Grandma was shaking her head sadly. She'd rather pay lawyers than help her sister, Uncle Pete announced to the room. That tells you everything. How much is this costing you, Emma? Aunt Carol asked smugly. Thousands, while your sister's children go without? Sarah suddenly clutched her chest. I can't breathe. The stress. She swayed dramatically, and Uncle James caught her arm. Someone get her water! Sarah's having a panic attack, Mom cried. Look what you've done, Emma! The room erupted in chaos. Relatives rushed to Sarah's side. Someone called for the manager. Mark kept filming everything, moving between Sarah's performance and my face. This is all your fault, Mom pointed at me. Your sister could lose custody if she doesn't have stable housing. The court date is next month. That was news to me. Court date? David's fighting for the kids, Dad revealed. Says Sarah's an unfit mother without a proper home. But you don't care about that, do you? Sarah's breathing became more dramatic. My babies! He'll take my babies! And Emma will let it happen, someone muttered. The woman in the navy suit had been standing in the doorway watching this unfold. Now she stepped forward. Ms. Foster? She addressed Sarah. I'm Patricia Williams from the State Housing Authority. That's quite a performance, but you might want to save it for someone who hasn't seen your housing application. Sarah's panic attack miraculously stopped. My what? The application where you listed your current residence as your parents' four-bedroom house, not their basement. The one where you stated you had no immediate need for emergency housing. The room went silent again. You've been investigating us? Mom gasped. No, Patricia said calmly. But when someone reports potential housing fraud, we do our due diligence. Who reported us? Dad demanded, his face now purple with rage. Patricia didn't answer, instead pulling out a tablet. Mr. Foster, are you aware that attempting to coerce someone into giving up their legal residence is a federal offense? Federal? His voice cracked. When it involves fraudulent documentation and conspiracy, yes. She gestured to the handwritten eviction notice. May I? Marcus handed it to her. She photographed it, shaking her head. This is evidence of attempted housing fraud, Patricia stated. Mrs. Mitchell, Sarah, you're already on our radar for filing false hardship claims. Adding conspiracy to defraud your sister won't help your custody case. You're lying, Sarah shrieked, all pretense of weakness gone. Emma called you. She set this up. Actually, Marcus interjected, Emma had no idea we were coming. This was triggered by the email I sent Friday about unusual activity on her property records. What activity? I asked, genuinely confused. Someone tried to add themselves to your deed through the county clerk's office, Marcus explained. Claimed to be a co-owner who'd been accidentally left off the original paperwork. My blood ran cold. Who? Marcus looked directly at my parents. The application was signed by Robert and Linda Foster. Gasps echoed through the room. Even the relatives who'd been supporting my parents looked shocked. You tried to steal my house? My voice came out as a whisper. Before today? It's not stealing, Mom protested. We were protecting family assets. By committing fraud? Patricia asked. That's a 2-year minimum sentence, Mrs. Foster. Prison? Aunt Margaret stood up, horrified. Linda, Robert, what have you done? Dad pointed at me. This is all her fault. If she'd just helped Sarah naturally, none of this would have happened. Naturally? I found my voice again. You mean if I just rolled over and given up everything I worked for? Yes, he shouted. That's what family does. The restaurant manager stepped forward. I'm sorry, but I need to ask you to lower your voices or leave. We're not going anywhere. Dad turned on him. This is a private event. Actually, the manager said quietly, Ms. Foster is our preferred customer. She's been coming here twice a month for 3 years. You're her guests, and if she wants you to leave, everyone looked at me. For the first time all afternoon, I held all the power. Marcus opened his briefcase with deliberate precision, pulling out a thick folder marked Foster E. Property Protection File. Let me explain what's actually happening here, he began, his voice carrying the authority of someone who'd done this many times before. Emma Foster is the sole legal owner of the property at 447 Maple Drive. She purchased it with her own funds, qualified for the mortgage independently, and has never missed a payment. But we're her parents, Mom started. Which gives you exactly 0 legal claim to her property, Marcus interrupted. However, what's more interesting is this. He pulled out a document with an official seal. This is the enhanced protection deed Emma signed at closing. It specifically prevents property transfer under family coercion. That's not a real thing, Dad scoffed. It's very real, Patricia confirmed. It's designed to protect individuals from exactly this scenario. Family members attempting to steal property through emotional manipulation. Marcus continued. The clause states that any attempt to force transfer through threats, emotional blackmail, or familial pressure automatically triggers a criminal investigation. Criminal? Sarah's voice went up an octave. Let's review the evidence. Marcus pulled out his phone. We have a fraudulent eviction notice, witness threats of family exile, attempted deed fraud at the county office, and, he glanced at Mark, video evidence of the entire conspiracy. It's not conspiracy. Dad slammed his fist on the table. It's family business. Actually, Patricia pulled up something on her tablet. When 3 or more people plan to defraud someone of property valued over $250,000, it's conspiracy to commit grand theft. The number hit the room like a bomb. $250,000. That's what they'd tried to steal from me. Furthermore, Marcus added, I have here Emma's bank statements showing she alone paid the down payment, $65,000 from her personal savings account. No transfers from any family members. He laid out more papers. Her mortgage pre-approval, showing she qualified with only her income. Her employment verification, proving she earns more than enough to maintain the property. How much does she earn? Aunt Carol asked nosily. That's confidential, Marcus said. But I can tell you it's more than double what's required for her mortgage payment. Sarah's face was crumbling. This isn't fair. She doesn't need all that space. Need is irrelevant, Patricia stated. Ownership is what matters. And legally, morally, and ethically, that house belongs to Emma alone. But the custody case, Sarah started desperately. Your custody case has nothing to do with your sister's property, Patricia cut her off. And filing false housing claims won't help you with the judge. In fact, this attempted fraud could cost you custody entirely. The room watched Sarah sink into her chair, finally understanding the magnitude of what she'd participated in. There's more, Marcus said, pulling out another document. This is particularly interesting. Emma, did you know your house has a title insurance protection rider? I shook my head, still processing everything. It means, he explained, that any fraudulent attempt to transfer the title triggers an automatic investigation and prosecution by the insurance company. They don't need Emma's permission. They'll pursue criminal charges independently. You're bluffing, Dad said, but his voice had lost its confidence. Patricia held up her tablet, showing an official document. Mr. Foster, this is the complaint filed by First National Title Insurance. They detected your fraudulent attempt to add yourself to the deed. They've already referred it to the district attorney. Mom grabbed Dad's arm. Robert, what did you do? It was supposed to be simple, Dad exploded. Add our names, transfer to Sarah, done. The clerk said it happens all the time with family properties. What clerk? Patricia asked sharply. Dad went silent, realizing he'd said too much. Here's what's going to happen, Marcus announced. My client has several options. Option 1, press full criminal charges for attempted grand theft, fraud, and conspiracy. That's minimum 2 years prison for the primary conspirators, possible probation for accessories. Several relatives shifted nervously. Option 2, he continued. Emma can file for restraining orders against anyone who participated in this scheme, preventing them from coming within 500 feet of her or her property. You can't ban us from seeing our daughter, Mom cried. Actually, she can, Patricia confirmed. Attempted property theft is grounds for a permanent protective order. Option 3, Marcus said, looking directly at me. Emma can choose to handle this privately, with conditions. What conditions? I asked. Full written apologies from all conspirators, signed agreements to never attempt any claim on her property. Sarah moves out within 48 hours, and a cease and desist preventing any family member from discussing her property or finances again. That's blackmail, Sarah accused. No, Marcus smiled coldly. Blackmail is threatening to disown your daughter if she doesn't give you her house. This is consequence management. Mark had stopped recording, his face pale. I didn't know it was illegal. I just thought it was family drama. Ignorance isn't a defense, Patricia warned. That video could make you an accessory. However, Marcus added, if you're willing to provide that video as evidence and testify truthfully, you'd likely receive immunity. Mark nodded quickly. Yes, absolutely, whatever you need. Traitor, Dad spat at him. No, Uncle Robert, Mark said quietly. I'm not going to jail for your scheme. The power dynamic in the room had completely shifted. The relatives who'd been pressuring me were now looking for exits. My parents sat frozen, finally understanding they'd committed actual crimes. And Sarah. Sarah was crying real tears for the first time all day. Marcus placed 3 documents on the table. Mr. and Mrs. Foster, Sarah Mitchell. These are cease and desist orders. Sign them now or I call the district attorney. We need a lawyer, Dad said weakly. You should have thought of that before attempting fraud, Patricia responded. Mr. Chen is offering you a gift, the chance to avoid prosecution. I wouldn't waste it. Mom picked up the pen with shaking hands. If we sign, Emma won't press charges? Correct, Marcus confirmed. But violate any terms, and criminal prosecution proceeds automatically. She signed, tears streaming down her face. Not tears of manipulation like Sarah's earlier performance, but genuine tears of humiliation and defeat. Dad signed next, his military bearing completely broken. The man who'd commanded respect through intimidation my whole life looked small, deflated. Sarah held out the longest. "This isn't fair. I need help. I'm getting divorced." "Your divorce isn't Emma's responsibility," Marcus said firmly. "Sign or face fraud charges that will guarantee you lose custody." That did it. Sarah scrawled her signature and pushed the paper away like it burned her. "Now," Marcus turned to the rest of the room. "Anyone who participated in pressuring Emma today needs to understand. You could be considered accessories. I suggest written apologies within 72 hours. Aunt Carol immediately spoke up. "Emma, I'm so sorry. I had no idea." "Save it for the letter," I said, finding my voice at last. Marcus pulled out another document. "Sarah, this confirms you'll vacate Emma's property within 48 hours. All your belongings removed, keys returned, no damage to the premises." 48 hours? Sarah protested. "Where am I supposed to go?" "Your parents have a 4-bedroom house," Patricia pointed out. "Your housing application confirms it has adequate space." "Speaking of which," Marcus added, "the false hardship claims you filed? Those are being reviewed. Any benefits you received fraudulently will need to be repaid." Sarah's face went white. "How much?" "Around $3,000, according to preliminary calculations," Patricia said. The room was silent, except for Sarah's quiet sobbing. Real consequences were hitting home. "Emma," Marcus turned to me, "do you want to add anything to the agreements?" I stood up, looking at my family, these people who'd tried to destroy me for their own gain. "Yes, I wanted in writing that no family member will ever ask me for money, property, or financial assistance again. Any request voids the agreement and triggers prosecution." "You can't cut us off completely," Mom gasped. "You tried to steal my house," I said simply. "You're lucky I'm not sending you to prison." Marcus added the clause, and they had to initial it. Each stroke of the pen was another nail in the coffin of our relationship. But I felt free. Finally, utterly free. "There's one more thing," Marcus announced, pulling out his phone. "The restaurant's security footage and Mark's video will be held in escrow. If anyone violates these agreements or attempts to retaliate against Emma, the evidence goes directly to the police." "Retaliate how?" Uncle James asked nervously. "Spreading lies about her, harassment at work, damaging her reputation," Marcus listed. "Any form of retaliation triggers immediate legal action." The manager stepped forward. "Ms. Foster, would you like these people to leave now?" I looked around the room. Aunt Margaret's 70th birthday cake sat untouched on the side table, the candles unlit. "Yes, everyone except Aunt Margaret can leave." "You're kicking us out?" Dad stood up, trying to reclaim some authority. "No, you kicked yourselves out when you tried to steal from me," I replied calmly. "Emma, please," Mom begged. "We're still your parents." "Parents don't steal from their children," I said. "Parents don't threaten and manipulate and conspire. You stopped being my parents the moment you signed that fraudulent deed application." Sarah stood up shakily. "I need to get my things from your house." "Marcus will arrange a supervised move-out," I said. "You're not entering my home without legal supervision." "You really hate me that much?" Sarah asked. "I don't hate you," I said honestly. "I nothing you. You're just someone who tried to rob me and failed." The relatives filed out slowly, some muttering apologies, others silent. Mark stopped beside me. "Emma, I'm really sorry. I'll send you the video and delete my copies." "Send them to Marcus," I said. "And Mark, you might want to reconsider who you trust in this family." He nodded and left quickly. Soon, only my parents and Sarah remained, standing by the door. "This isn't over," Dad said quietly. "Yes, it is." Marcus stepped beside me. "And that sounded like a threat, Mr. Foster. Would you like to revise your statement?" Dad's jaw clenched, but he said nothing more. They left without another word. The room felt enormous suddenly, empty except for me, Marcus, Patricia, and Aunt Margaret, who'd been silent through everything. "Well," Aunt Margaret finally spoke, "that was overdue by about 10 years." I stared at her in surprise. Oh, Emma, she smiled sadly. I've watched them treat you like a second-class citizen your whole life. I should have spoken up sooner. I'm sorry. You knew they'd do something like this? I suspected. When they kept asking about your house value at Christmas, I worried. That's why I insisted on having my birthday here, in public. I thought it would keep them civilized. She laughed bitterly. Shows what I know. Marcus started packing his briefcase. Emma, you did the right thing. They would have escalated if you'd given in. I nodded, feeling the weight of what just happened. I'd lost my family but kept my home, my dignity, and my future. Within 24 hours, the family grapevine exploded. My phone buzzed with messages from cousins, aunts, and uncles I hadn't heard from in years. Some supported me, others called me heartless. I didn't respond to any of them. Sarah moved out in exactly 47 hours, supervised by Marcus's assistant. She'd done $500 worth of damage, nail holes in walls, stains on the carpet. Marcus added it to the documentation. The real consequences started hitting the following week. Dad's attempt at deed fraud had been flagged in the county system. When he went to refinance their house, he was denied. His credit score plummeted. Mom discovered their homeowner's insurance had doubled. Fraud attempts are public record. Sarah's custody battle took a devastating turn. David's lawyer subpoenaed the restaurant footage, using it as evidence of her unstable and criminal behavior. She lost primary custody, getting only supervised weekend visits. At work, word somehow got out that I'd stood up to my family. Instead of judging me, my colleagues respected me more. My boss, who'd gone through her own family property dispute, pulled me aside. You did what most people can't, she said. You chose yourself. That takes courage. The promotion I'd been hoping for came through 2 weeks later. Senior financial analyst became director of financial planning. The salary increase meant I could pay off my mortgage 5 years early. Some relatives tried to break the agreement subtly. Aunt Carol posted on Facebook about family members who choose money over blood. Marcus sent her a warning letter. The post disappeared within hours. Uncle Pete called my office, pretending to be a client needing financial advice. My assistant recognized the name from the banned contact list Marcus had provided. He received a formal cease and desist that afternoon. The most surprising response came from my grandmother. She sent a letter, an actual handwritten letter, through Marcus's office. Emma, it read, I was wrong. I let my old-fashioned ideas about family cloud my judgment. Your parents and Sarah took advantage of you, and I enabled them. I'm leaving you something in my will, not money, but something you deserve. Don't contact me. I need time to think about what I've become. But know that I see clearly now. Marcus confirmed the letter was legal and didn't violate any agreements. I kept it, but didn't respond. 3 months later, I learned through Aunt Margaret that my parents were in counseling. Apparently, the threat of prison had forced them to confront their toxic patterns. Sarah had moved in with them permanently, exactly where she'd started. 6 months after the confrontation, I received an unexpected call from Patricia Williams. Emma, I wanted to update you on something. Your case has become a training example for our department. My case? The way your family attempted property theft. It's more common than people think. We're using it to train investigators on recognizing family fraud patterns. With your permission, we'd like to create an anonymized case study. I agreed immediately. If my story could help others avoid what I went through, something good would come from the pain. The ripple effects continued. Mark, who'd provided the video evidence, reached out through Marcus. He'd started seeing the family dynamics clearly and was setting his own boundaries. His video had saved me, and now he was saving himself from the same toxic patterns. My house became my sanctuary. I converted Sarah's former room into a home office, painted the walls the colors I loved, and hung art without asking anyone's opinion. Every mortgage payment felt like a victory. The neighborhood noticed the change too. Without Sarah's kids running wild and her car blocking driveways, my relationships with neighbors improved. Mrs. Chen from next door, who'd witnessed some of Sarah's tantrums, brought me cookies one day. You did the right thing, she said simply. Family that treats you like that isn't family. At work, I became known as someone who could handle difficult situations with grace. Clients trusted me more, knowing I had backbone. My consulting side business tripled within 4 months. The legal documentation proved useful in unexpected ways. When I applied for a business loan to expand my consulting practice, the bank officer noticed the enhanced property protection. Smart move, he said. We see too many family fraud cases. This shows you understand asset protection. The loan was approved at the lowest interest rate available. I learned that Dad had tried to contest the agreements through a lawyer. The lawyer reviewed the case, saw the evidence, and told him he was lucky to avoid prison. That ended any further attempts at manipulation. Sarah's life spiraled differently. Without my house as a backup plan, she had to face reality. She got a job, retail, but it was something. She couldn't manipulate her way through life anymore. Through it all, Aunt Margaret stayed in touch. She became the family I chose, rather than the family forced upon me. We had lunch monthly, never discussing the others unless necessary. You're thriving, she observed one afternoon. Cutting out the poison was the best medicine. Looking back now, that Sunday at the Grandview restaurant was the day I truly became an adult. Not when I graduated college, not when I bought my house, but when I stood up to the people who were supposed to love me most and said, no, this is mine. Family isn't about blood or obligation. It's about respect, genuine love, and healthy boundaries. The family I was born into taught me what I didn't want to be. The family I chose, Aunt Margaret, supportive colleagues, true friends, showed me what real connection looks like. My house is more than property now. It's proof that I can protect myself, that I deserve what I've earned, and that love without respect isn't love at all. Every room tells the story of my independence, my strength, my refusal to be diminished. To those watching who struggle with similar situations, document everything. Get legal protection before you need it. And remember, saying no to toxic family isn't selfish, it's self-preservation. The cease and desist agreements remain in effect. I haven't spoken to my parents or Sarah in over a year. Some might call that sad. I call it peaceful. The money I might have given them went into my retirement account instead. The energy I spent managing their crises now goes into building my business. Recently, I received word that Grandma passed away. True to her letter, she left me something in her will, not money, but her collection of first edition books and a note. For the granddaughter who knew their worth. Boundaries aren't walls built from hatred. They're fences built from wisdom, with gates that only open for those who've earned entry. My parents and sister chose to violate that trust. They chose theft over relationship. That was their decision, and these are the consequences. My name is Emma Foster. I own my home, my choices, and my life. And that's enough. Thank you for listening to my story. If it resonated with you, please share it with someone who needs to hear that it's okay to stand up for yourself, even against family. What boundaries have you had to set with your loved ones? I read every comment and would love to hear your experiences. Subscribe for more stories about standing up for yourself with dignity and grace. Hit the notification bell so you don't miss the next story. And remember, loving your family doesn't mean letting them walk all over you. You deserve respect, protection, and peace. Until next time, stay strong and know your worth.